Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, your excellencies, esteemed religious leaders. My name is Leon Levy, and I serve as Secretary of the Board to the American Friends of the Jewish Museum of Greece. It is a pleasure to be with you all again, and in our traditional time and in our traditional place. A sincere thank you to the Greek Consulate of New York for sponsoring this event as per tradition, and a sincere thank you to Professor Dimitrios for his generous contribution and support of this event, also per tradition. This is the first time we've managed to hold this event in person and in late January, which is our normal time, since COVID-19 erupted. The last few years have been a stark reminder for the world how quickly circumstances can change. For those gathered in this room, though, participating in this annual tradition, no reminders of that fact is necessary. Every year, we gather around this time to reflect on how the whole world can change in an instant, and too often in the most horrible ways possible. We gather to share and remember these stories, experiences told to us by acquaintances, by our friends, and by our own family members. It is not just our way of remembering. It is also our way of steeling ourselves against the realities of the world so that we can never forget and in the process ensure never again. But the reality is that it becomes harder to remember the stories and learn from the experiences of people you have never really met. It becomes harder to remember Greek Jewry as each year drives us further away from the world we are remembering. And yet, that is our job. For plenty of us in this room, it will be our job we will be doing for the next few decades. And it is a job that will not be getting any easier. So tonight, we wanted to focus our efforts on not just remembering what happened, critical as that always is, but also on how best to teach those about it who will never get a chance to meet those directly affected. For those whom it will more likely resemble an entry in a history book rather than a tragic chapter of their personal family history. You will see these efforts weaved throughout the ceremony with letter readings and musical performances. It will also be the subject of our keynote presentation by Victor Cohen. But to begin today's ceremony, I would now like to invite the Consul General of Greece, His Excellency Dinos Konstantinou, to come up and share a few remarks.
Thank you, Leon. Good evening, everyone. I would like a few seconds to acknowledge some very important people in this room. Permanent representative of Greece to the UN Ambassador Securis, welcome. You just arrived, and I wish you every success in your mission. Dear friends, Consul General of Germany, David Gill, Consul General of Cyprus, Michalis Firilas, Deputy Consul General of Israel, Nizan, Deputy Consul General of Italy, Biller, Very Reverend Archimandrite Nektarios Papazafiropoulos, representing the Archdiocese of Greece in America, Rabbi Diana Gerson and David Levy, David Harris, former CEO of the AJC. David, thank you very much for all the great work we've been doing together in Greece during your tenure in AJC. Of course, the president of the American Friends of the Jewish Museum of Greece, my friend Solomon Nasser, who has been instrumental in carrying out this beautiful event. Vasilis Tsamis from the Niarchos Foundation, who is always supporting us in these very important endeavors of the consulate. Andrew Marcos, director of Kehila Kedosa Janina, which is the only Greek Jewish Romaniote synagogue and museum in New York. The president of Alma Bank, Mr. Michael Psylos, and executive advisor Nancy Papaioannou. The esteemed professor of public administration, Dimitris Argyriadis. Thank you for being here, Dimitri. And last but not least, our keynote speaker, Victor Cohen. Thank you very much for being here tonight and sharing your insight on how we can promote and keep this memory alive. Dear friends, we meet here today to honor the memory of the victims of the Holocaust. 6 million Jews and other minorities were systematically persecuted and mass murdered by the Nazis and their collaborators. Among them, 70,000 Greek Jews that perished during the atrocious Holocaust. This is almost 85% of the historic Jewish community in Greece that has always been an integral part of our nation. Anti-Semitism found its most horrific expression in the Holocaust. It demonstrated the cruelty that human beings are capable of. Entire communities were wiped out. The Nazi regime committed atrocities on a scale never encountered before. It is our sacred obligation to make sure that these heinous crimes will not be repeated. Anti-Semitism was not invented by the Nazi regime, nor did it end with its fall. It constitutes one of the most persistent forms of discrimination. Humanity rarely learns from history, and the Holocaust constitutes no exception. As we speak, minorities around the world are being targeted on the basis of religion, ethnicity, race, sexual orientation, or disability. Public discourse is plagued with conspiracy theories and neo-Nazi rhetoric. Hate speech is disturbingly widespread on social media. Stereotypes and discrimination alarmingly infiltrate our society. This is why, dear friends, we need to take action today. It is our historical duty to tackle anti-Semitism, racism, xenophobia, bigotry, and discrimination. We need to fight ignorance, indifference, and intolerance. It is actually our collective responsibility to raise awareness and remain vigilant against hate speech and hate crimes. Educating the younger generations of this tragic period is of fundamental importance to my eyes. I take pride in the fact that for the first time today, we have two young ladies participating in our program, Esther Herrera and Sivar Cohen, who will read us excerpts from the remarkable collection of letters published by the historian Leon Saltiel entitled Do Not Forget Me. Dear friends, remembering the victims, heroes, and lessons of the Holocaust is particularly important today as Holocaust deniers and minimizers are growing louder in our public discourse. We must pass the history of the Holocaust on to our grandchildren and their grandchildren in order to keep the real promise of never again. This is how we will prevent future genocides. But the facts are not up for question, and each of us must remain vigilant and speak out against the resurgent tide of anti-Semitism and other forms of bigotry and intolerance here in the US and around the world. Tahi nishamatam chura bistror achayim. Thank you again for your presence tonight and your kind attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for those words. You are very right to point out that prejudice knows no bounds. The lessons of the Holocaust go well beyond the Jews and other direct victims of the Nazis. I would now like to invite up Solomon Aser, President of the American Friends of the Jewish Museum of Greece.
We remember. We will always remember. This is the reason of the gathering tonight. Distinguished clergy, members of the diplomatic corps, our sponsors, our hosts, and of course the Consul General of Greece, Dinos Konstantinou, thank you for tonight. We remember that 83% of the Greek Jews perished during the Holocaust, the highest percentage of all European countries, in a community that dates back to 2300 before Jesus Christ, one of the oldest community of the diaspora. We remember. The Jewish Museum of Greece is an institution dedicated to preserve the history and the presence of the Jewish life in Greece. Besides the artifacts, the memorabilia, the museum is a pivotal source for teaching the Holocaust to to the teachers who teach the younger generation. We don't forget. I urge you to support the important work of this small museum in Athens, strengthening your financial pledge or just spreading the word of its existence. The American Friends has been a steady supporter. We remember. I would like to ask any survivors of the Holocaust that are sitting in the audience to stand up. Anyways, they're around, and I know who they are, but they don't want to get up. Thank you. Thank you, not only our co-citizens who help these people to be around us for as long as they're going to be, as long as the years go by. Now, I would like to ask you to stand up to hold a minute of silence for those who perished. We remember. We will never forget. Never again. Thank you.
Thank you, Solomon, for those remarks, as always. And now I would like to invite Esther Herrera and Sivan Cohen to the stage. As the Consul General just referenced, a few years ago, the historian Leon Saltiel edited and published a collection of letters entitled, "Do Not Forget Me, 3 Jewish Mothers Write to Their Sons from the Thessaloniki Ghetto." All of these letters are haunting, and all in their unique ways. Sometimes it's the horror of the words themselves. Other times it's the horror of everything that's left unsaid. The first set of letters we will be hearing this evening are between Sarina Saltiel and her son Maurice, who was around 21 years old at the time. The first letter is from May 1942. The second is from March 1943, as the deportations from the Thessaloniki Ghetto get underway. At the time of these writings, Maurice had managed to escape from Thessaloniki to Athens with the help of luck and Christian friends who were willing to risk the world for him. Maurice's parents were sent to the Thessaloniki Ghetto and then Auschwitz, from which they did not return. Following Esther and Sivan's reading, Rabbi Diana S. Gerson, spiritual leader of the American Friends of the Jewish Museum of Greece, will lead us in the traditional Yizkor, or Remembrance, Jewish prayer service.
First letter, 17th of May, 1942. My dear child, I haven't heard from you for the past 15 days. Thank God I received your letter today from the 13th. I write to you almost every Sunday. I don't understand why you haven't heard from me. I already wrote to you telling you that I received your 2 photos. I even gave you my opinion on the photographer. I heard you're not eating well. Don't do that because you'll need the energy with the exams coming up. Make sure you eat healthy because I want to see you in a good condition when you return. Father wants you to send him the medicine. Also send me ubrocarpine if you can find some because I suffer from arthritis, especially when it's windy. I want you to buy me a little bit of fabric in a pretty pattern of your choice and send it to me through Sotiris' mother or with the Greek guide that brought you the chocolates I sent you. I hope you received the box I sent containing 7 chocolate bars, 2 boxes of Gustave Bourvolairs and some biscuits. Give 1 of the chocolate bars to Sammy and 2 to the Segura family. The rest is for you. Do you want the swimsuit? I'll send it to you as soon as I can. Today, I went to a jazz concert performed by Michel Asael and his orchestra. It was my first concert. It pleased me immensely. The venue was packed, and I met all of my old friends. I thought that you would come soon too. The concert consisted of pasos dobles, tangos, and various other songs. The singer outdid himself, and Michel was overjoyed. I was so excited when I left that I went to the photographer to get my picture taken to send to you, but there wasn't enough light, so I returned home disappointed. Once at home, I found that Uncle Jacques' family had come over for dinner. I was invited to go to Aunt Sol's house. They were having Sammy's associate over for dinner. However, Father didn't want to go because he had taken a laxative. I really regretted not being able to go because I had wanted to get news of you through this gentleman. I went to see a psychic yesterday to find out who stole my cheese. She told me 2 porters had stolen it. I then asked her when I would get my house. She replied that I would be given the key this week, but after much difficulty. Let's hope so. The Marco ladies would have replied to you, but they've been very busy with their mother, who has been sick for the past 3 weeks due to an abscess on her leg that got infected. I'm her doctor and her nurse, and they're very happy with the way I treat the wound. In the evening, I removed the pus, the most difficult part of the procedure, and I'm very happy to have succeeded. Hopefully, it will do for now. I saw Manolis yesterday. They all want to see you again. Thank Sammy for the stockings he sent me. I hope the shoes fit you well. Change your socks every day so that the sweat doesn't give you a skin infection. Give my regards to the Segura family, Sammy, Sotiri, and his mother. Thank her for all the trouble she went through to give you the gift. Your grandfather, grandmother, as well as your father send you their kisses. Everyone sends their greetings. Many loving kisses from your dear mother, Sarina. P.S. I gave the invoice I found in your letter to Father.
27th letter, 17th of March, 1943. My dear child, as I write these lines to you, my eyes are filled with tears and my heart is filled with ice-cold terror. We've been going through agony that has gradually increased these past 2 months, the workings of an experienced sadist. I can't describe what we're going through during this time without upsetting you. For 2 years, all I did was move apartments, conscious of the fact that we could end up homeless any moment. Nevertheless, I was patient because at least we were allowed to remain in our homeland. This last time, having been moved into the ghettos, we go to bed at night, fearing the new order that awaits us the next day. We were first forbidden to stay outside after 5 o'clock. Then, leaving the ghetto was forbidden, stores were closed, and we had to declare our assets and fortune to the family dog and the chicken. We swallowed this poison gradually, and, like the beasts of burden that we are, we submitted in silence. The worst now is deportation. Our blood runs cold at all times. Our hearts beat to the point of bursting. We must abandon everything, country, parents. We'll be separated from each other, from friends and fortune, and we'll have to leave with a backpack only. We're not even allowed to carry a suitcase. The first convoy has already left. We don't know where to. The second one will leave today. On the day of departure, people go crazy. They burn their paper money, destroy their furniture with the cries of mortally wounded animals. Then, after abandoning all the fruits of their labor, they leave packed like sardines and treated worse than animals in cattle wagons. This is what awaits us, either today or tomorrow. We give everything to any poor person that comes along, shoes to one person, clothes to another, and money to yet another. Since nothing belongs to us anymore, we might as well clothe others. Aunt is about to give birth. Where will this poor girl give birth? If we were to leave on the same train, I would be able to help her at least. We've been separated from grandfather, grandmother, and from your aunt and uncle. When I think of these old people with none of their children around to help them during these hard times, the hairs on the back of my head stand up. Your friend was more than a son to me during this difficult period. I'll never be able to repay him for everything he did for us. I'll be a mother to him should God grant me the power to return one day. I'll help him with his studies. If I'm not allowed to, you, my dear child, must clear this debt. You must live with him and the other friend of yours like brothers. His parents have also done a lot for us. I'll always be grateful to them. With them, you'll find everything you need. I recommended you to them. I don't know what awaits me tomorrow at dawn. If we also get deported, I'll try to be strong and endure all the pain just to be able to see you again one day. May the vision of you give me strength during these difficult moments. I'll say to myself, no, we'll never give up. The day will come when my beloved child will warm me with his love and make me forget this nightmare. Be just as strong. God won't abandon us. God can perform a miracle any time. There are so many hearts imploring him. I try to think of what I could have done wrong to deserve such suffering. I swear to you, my dear child, that I can't find any reason. I've always been kind and generous to everyone. I received proof of this these last few days. Since 7 o'clock this morning, the house is full of friends. Everyone wants to help me, but the only thing they can do is surround me with their affection. At least it makes you feel better to know you're loved. However, there are others who, like birds of prey, come to devour what we leave behind and which could not be theirs, with covetous eyes. These people are sweet-talking friends who wish to grab the bloody remains of our wounded hearts and abandoned property with the nails of birds of prey. Father doesn't know what to do. He comes and goes. He can't help me in any way, so I have to think of everything. It's as if I had a child, and I treat him like one. May God give me strength enough for two, so that you may see him again. He sends you his blessings along with mine. May God always protect you. Be good and generous with everyone. Beware of sweet talkers, because they always keep their thoughts hidden. Love your cousins like you love your brothers. May no discord ever separate you. Thank all the friends and parents you have over there on my behalf. I'll leave you now, my dear boy. I kiss you and pray to God for a miracle tomorrow, so that I can write another joyful letter to you and even bless our enemies. Father sends you kisses. I cover you with tender kisses, your friend, your dearest, your mother.
We begin this evening of remembrance with a prayer by my colleague, David Katz. Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the universe, on this most solemn of occasions, we open our hearts, minds, and souls to you. As we remember the 6 million, the 11 million, the indifference, and the evil. As we honor the heroes, the martyrs, the survivors, and the victims. We ask you to soothe our souls, to amplify our memories, to strengthen our resolve, and to hear our prayers. We ask you for your presence in our midst, for healing, light, and love, to soothe and ease our pain as we commemorate the horrors that were committed not long ago. Please, O Holy One, be gentle with our souls. We ask that you help us to forever remember the stories we hear, as tales of the atrocities are shared, as we re-encounter the unthinkable. We ask that these memories be strengthened and never fade, in the hope that those who remember the mistakes of the past will not repeat them. Please, O Holy One, amplify our ability to remember. We ask that you strengthen our will, that you help us to ensure that the world does not again see such monstrosities. We say never again, and we dedicate ourselves to this principle, to the idea that justice does not allow persecution, that genocide shall not be repeated, and that vigilance is the responsibility of freedom at all costs. Please, O Holy One, make manifest our resolve that these horrors remain but memories. We ask that you answer our prayers. We pray that the call of evil falls on deaf ears, that those who fight for freedom and justice always prevail, and that those who need protection do not become victims. We pray that the lessons we learn from this darkest hour allow all humankind to better itself and to truly and nobly embody the idea that we are each made in your image. We pray for the souls of the millions and millions of victims of this brutality. We pray that we honor their lives and their memories by observing this day, this gathering, and by doing everything in our power and beyond to make sure that no such shadow ever darkens our world. Above all, we pray for shalom, for wholeness and peace to be in our midst now and forever. Please, O Holy One, answer our prayers and bring us to a world devoid of hatred, filled instead with peace. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will, and may we all say together the word, Amen. Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid Adonai ro'i lo echzar bin od teshe yabitzeni al mei menuchad yanchaleni. God is my shepherd, I shall not want. God makes me lie down in green pastures and leads me beside still waters. God restores my soul. God leads me in right paths for the sake of God's name. Even when I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for you are with me. With rod and staff you comfort me. You have set a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You have anointed my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Eternal forever. At this moment of memorial, we recall with grief all your children who have perished through the cruelty of the oppressor, victims of demonic hate, the aged and the young, the learned and the unlettered, all driven in multitudes along the road of pain, lives cut short. They were kind and loving in their deeds. The goodness of their lives will never be lost, and their work will not be blotted out. Adonai, we bless the memories of those we cherish. They may lie in nameless graves, in far-off forests, lonely fields, and the substance of many was scattered by the winds, the four corners of the earth. Yet they shall not be forgotten. We take them in our hearts and place them beside the cherished memories of our own loved ones. They now are all of ours. Tonight we remember with sorrow those whose lives were taken from our midst during the Holocaust, the families who never returned, and the communities that vanished. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember them. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember them. In the opening buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember them. in the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember them. In the beginning of the year, and when it ends, we remember them. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember them. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember them. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember them. So long as we live, they too shall live, for they are now a part of us as we remember them. I invite you to please rise for the El Male. El Male Rachamim Shochen Baromim Hamatze Minucha Nechona Tacha Kanfe Chashchina Im Kedoshim V'Toharim Kezochar HaKiyah Maschirim Et Nishmot Yakirenu Shehalchu La'olamam Ba'al harachamim yastirem beseter kanafav la'olamim Vitzrur bitzrur chachayim et nishmatam Adonai hu nachalatam Vayanuchu b'shalom al mishkavam v'nomar Amen. O God, full of compassion, eternal Spirit of the universe, grant perfect rest under the wings of your presence to our loved ones who have entered eternity. Master of mercy, let them find refuge forever in the shadow of your wings, and let their souls be bound up on the bond of eternal life. The eternal God is their inheritance. May they rest in peace, and together let us say, Amen. We join together in the words of Kaddish Yatom Mourner's Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabba Be'alman divrach yiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh B'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye dekol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabba mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal Shemei dekudsha b'richu Le'ela minkol birchata v'shirata Tush berchata v'nechamata Damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav Hu ya'aseh shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and to all who are bereaved. And I ask you to please be seated. May God remember forever our dear ones who have gone to their eternal rest. May they be at one with the one who is life eternal. May the beauty of their lives shine forevermore, and may our hearts and deeds always bring honor to their memory. And together let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Rabbi, for leading us in this moving service. Now, Sivan and Esther will read another short exchange of letters, this time written by Matilda Baruch to her son, Freddie. Like Maurice, Freddie, too, had managed to escape to Athens, which until September 1943 was being governed by Italian authorities that were much more lenient when it came to the treatment of the Jews. These two letters were written less than 2 months apart. Matilda and Freddie never saw each other again.
First letter, Sunday, 28th of February, 1943. My dear Freddie, I hope you received my letter of the 20th and that you have an idea of what our life here is like. With all that is happening, I haven't been able to write to Lou yet for the birth. At least you already did. I'm sure Mrs. Joseph wrote to them, and that Lily, not having received a letter from me, will get all sorts of ideas. Enclosed, you will find a letter for her, which you must send without delay. As you read in my letter, we live at Amalia Street, number 30, the address you must send your letters to from now on. We have a very large room that has 2 rooms without a separating wall. We have 4 beds, 2 beds for Giuliano, Yvonne, and Claude on one side, and 2 for Aunt and me on the other side. The 2 opposite one another, a stove and a table in the middle for eating. Right now, we're playing harakiri. Luckily, we live with people who are very nice. I think you know them. Gabriel Hassid, a friend of Salamos. For the time being, we are well. May something worse not come to us. You understand that today it is harder than before with a life like this. Unfortunately, I had already told you before you left the last time that things could come and we would find one here and the other there. You told me you're planning on getting a permit. It's physically impossible to get one at the moment. What God says, this will happen. Just make sure you don't leave me without a letter. You wrote in your last letter that you received my letter as well as one from Mrs. Estra. I wrote to Mrs. Estra twice. What happened to my first letter? I fear that not all my letters, which Salamo sends by post through Beppo or Alberto, are sent because you often tell me you don't receive news from me. Try to keep up with what's going on here. Did you receive the letter in which I tell you to write to Sammy and thank him for thinking of me? Let me know. I have so much to tell you, but I can't do it by letter. Just wait, inshallah, and one day we will be reunited. We have so many things to talk about. Kiss dear Annette, Henry, and Jico. I send you all my love, my darling Freddie.
11th letter, 17th of April, 1943. My dear Freddie, I'm taking advantage of Mr. Blezin being here to write a few lines to you. I hope you received all my letters. I believe you saw Mr. Askidu and that he relayed our conversation to you. We're still here. Mr. Blezin will inform you of our departure. Goodbye, my darling Freddie. We'll meet each other later with the help of God. I embrace you with all my heart, your mother.
I will now ask Victor Cohen to come up and deliver tonight's keynote presentation. In addition to being a member of the Greek Jewish community, having been born and raised in Thessaloniki, Victor is an acclaimed visual artist and educator. He currently serves as chair of the BFA Comics and BFA Illustration departments at the School of Visual Arts in New York City. His presentation this evening will focus on the importance of storytelling as a method of Holocaust education and commemoration in a world that's evolving as rapidly as ours. Victor, the floor is yours.
I will remember this until I forget it. By René Goscinny. This is a strange sentence in a setting such as ours. René Goscinny was a legendary French comics author and editor, better known for his characters Asterix, Lucky Luke, collaborations with Mad magazines, but also is no good, where this specific quote comes from. This is unexpected indeed, but if we take this sentence out of its original comic context, it will reveal very simple truth about the mechanics of memory. We remember until we don't. According to Jewish tradition, the dead truly die only when we are forgotten. We said Kaddish to avoid exactly this. Another truth about memory is that better than facts and statistics, we remember stories. So I will share a story that I know forever. It was practically mixed in my baby formula. This is a typical Thessaloniki survivor story. Quite a few of us in this room have one at home, but nevertheless extraordinary any way you look at it. Even in its less brutal and graphic version, that I will try to use. Silvia Molcho was born on March 6, 1925. It was Shabbat de las Novias. She's my grandmother. This is a family portrait. You can see Silvia standing right in the beginning. Seated is her mother, Oro. Her brother, Lieto, is standing, and Ida, her little sister, is right next to them. The insert is their father, Avraham. Silvia lost him when she was just 4 years old. Silvia was a typical teenager. She liked to go to the après-midi events. She went to the Alliance school, and she helped and learned with a seamstress after school. Her aunt, Buena Molcho, marries Simon Nachmia, a jeweler, and they emigrate to America around 1935. They settle in Brooklyn, they prosper, and they have 4 sons. Oro sent this family portrait to Aunt Buena in Brooklyn for a keepsake. When the Italian War breaks out in October of 1940, Silvia does what every other teenager did. In the guidance of the Red Cross, they make socks and gloves for the boys in the front. They visit hospitals with sweets in hand. One of them, her cousin Fico Nachmia, who lost both of his legs. The German army enters Salonika on April 8th in 1941. They're unemployed with no income. Silvia convinces her mother to go to villages around the city and sell family belongings in order to make a living. She's very effective. July 11th, 1942, Black Sabbath. Lieto is one of the 9,000 Jewish men concentrated in the Eleftheria Square. He comes home injured and exhausted. He's also one of the 2,000 men in forced labor in Sindos. Within a few weeks, he's in bad shape. Silvia and her uncle visit him. He has malaria. The community succeeds in bringing some of them home. Lieto returns, recuperates, but instead of re-enlisting, he escapes. Oro is targeted by collaborators who demand money to erase his name from the wanted list. The ghettos begin. First, the family moves to the Rezi Vardar, then to the Baron Hirsch. The mental asylum there is used for torture. Silvia clearly can hear their voices. She's married in a white wedding with Moïse Piton. This is for Moïse to be able to stay with his family, his parents and his sisters. They know the family. They live next door to them in the ghetto. These are photographs of train cars that have taken Jews from Thessaloniki to Poland. They're parked at the railway station museum in Thessaloniki. Molcho and the Piton families are deported in late March 1943. They're sizable families, Oro's brothers and sister Dudun, and all of their children. On the night of April 3rd, after 8 days of a journey, they reach Auschwitz. This is the central track, the central gate of Bergenau. Silvia remembers bright lights, the SS, dogs, and the striped uniforms that they see for the very first time. Within hours, people are stripped of their glasses, their prosthetics, their hair. Oro is gone. After the platform, she's taken along with the rest of the family on Red Cross marked trucks, never to be seen again. They think the chimneys are factories where they're supposed to work. Tattooed, shaved, and utterly confused, Silvia and Ida are now in quarantine for about 3 weeks. This is their new home, Block 20. Three-level beds, 7 people per bed. Sylvia is in the middle, Ida right below her. Right outside block 20 is the ditch right before the electrified fence. Crossing that ditch meant being shot by the guards on the tower or electrocuted. That was a very popular kind of suicide. It happened a lot. The French girls tell them about the crematoria. This is a shower head that was found in the ruins of crematorium number 2. First day of work. She's in a very hard detail. They're digging ditches. 5 girls are shot for trying to drink from a stream nearby. Message received. Trying to escape the very difficult detail she has, she tries to sneak into an easier one. She does it so many times, the Blokova, the supervisor of her block, beats her unconscious with a wooden truncheon. She's taken to the hospital. Dr. Rosa, a French doctor, treats her, warns her about selections, and sends her back to work. Her number and her sister numbers are included in a new commando. It's called the Shoe Commando, where they're supposed to take shoes from people that have departed and bring them to a special barracks with tools and benches to take them apart. They need to deliver 13 pairs of shoes every day. There is treasure in the shoes. If they're in good condition, you can trade them, or often you find valuable things that people have hidden in them. The girls of the Shoe Commando use them to trade for food, for water, for medicine, and for bribes. Sometimes they return from work and they run into trucks full of girls, taking them to the crematoria. When they see relatives or friends, shout goodbyes. Ida has typhus. She's in the hospital of block 33. Sylvia manages to go see her. Ida says, "Live no matter what. Don't cry and remember me." She was skeletal and she would not make the next selection. These were their last words. Sylvia never forgave herself for not trying more to save her. On that last day, Ida asked for water that was in short supply. Sylvia finds a ring, she exchanges it for water, she runs to the hospital, but the hospital bed is empty. Sylvia, depressed, loses appetite, and it's only because of the effort of her friends Berta and Strea Albocher that brings some salt that they make her eat and save her life. This is part of a sign that says, "Keep yourself clean," on the walls of the bathroom. Barrack 20 is right across the street from the men barracks. They have to take all of their clothing off and stay naked in front of their building in order to disinfect their clothing. The men, out of respect, they turn their backs and tell them not to worry. Only God can see you now. The Shoe Commando bathrooms are near to the German food place. There is a dump, there is a pit where people are throwing the pills from the kitchen. Inmates jump into that pit in order to find scraps. At some point, my grandmother and her friend Matika jumps in. The pit is full of bad beets. So Matika jumps out, but the commander is showing up in his motorcycle, and Sylvia hides in the pit. She thinks this is the end, but a Polish worker tells her to wait, and when there is a moment when no one is looking, is pulling her up. She is red from head to toe. When she returns, her Blokova laughs so hard, she doesn't punish them. One freezing morning, when during appel, they've been standing for hours there to be counted, Sylvia looks up and clearly sees a bearded biblical figure in the sky. Avraham Avinu, she whispers. They all look up and start crying. The Blokova, sensing the commotion, looks up, and she's so terrified she doesn't make them go to work that day. Sylvia contracts typhus and is taken again to the hospital. Mois Pichon, her white wedding husband, finds her there by chance. He was looking for his sisters and pleads with Dr. Rosa to get her back to work. Sylvia is lethargic and would not survive the next election. Since then, Sylvia has developed a pathological fear of people on white lab coats. So she hid everything that was wrong with her in order not to go to the doctor until the end. She survived 9 selections, each one of them more painful than the other. In October 1944, Sylvia Bloch is moved to Auschwitz I to make room in Birkenau. The iconic entry. And Block 10. This is the experiments block, where subjects of Dr. Karl Klauberg's sterilization experiments include her very good friends, Palomba Soel and Bienvenida Mano. This is an administration office. I don't know if this trial that I'll speak about took place there, but it's the closest I could come. Sylvia's hands are so cut up she cannot work. She cheats, and she's reported for trial for sabotage against the Reich. On her way to her cell, they're building a gallows. She thinks they're going to hang her. She's sentenced to 3 days of isolation in the bunker, no food, and standing room only. Girls are taken dead out there. Once there, she recognizes the voice of Neni Berisi, one of the girls from the Union Fabrik munition factory that supplied the Greek guys in the Sonderkommando with explosives for the uprising in October. It's Christmas 1944. Germany is losing the war. The SS are moving inmates inland. They're very upset because as soon as the girls are sensing that things are turning, they start singing. Germans are telling them, we're gonna gas you, we're gonna burn you without gassing you first. They're terrified. They walk through dead bodies from camps marching before them. She loses her left shoe and her foot goes numb from the cold. She loses ground, sits down and crossed hands over the head, starts praying and waits for a bullet. A Wehrmacht officer yells at her, "Are you so stupid? Get up. The trains are around the corner. Do you want to die so close to the end?" He orders 2 inmates to pick her up and push her forward towards open train cars. He saves her life. The trains arrive to Ravensbrück camp and they're taken to Malchow right after that. They march again, passing German families fleeing towards the US forces instead of the Russians. A Polish farmer near the road tells them, "Tomorrow we will be free. You don't have to march anymore. Come hide in this barn, is right here." They sneak in there, it's about 20 of them. They hide behind bales of hay. In the middle of the night, 2 French-speaking men come in and change their German uniforms into civilian clothing and agree to pretend that they're survivors. As they open the door of the barn in the morning of May 2nd, 1945, they're in the middle of the frantic German retreat from the Red Army. They're free. The approaching Red Army columns have on their head a Jewish officer named Pesachowitz. "We didn't take Berlin yet, so we have to keep on moving." He cautioned them not to stay there. He said, "The place will be full of Russian soldiers, happy about the victory, and drunk. They haven't seen women in months." The group doesn't listen. They stay at a villa adjacent to the barn. It belonged to some high dignitary that has fled, they take dresses, they take baths, they help in the kitchen for the Russian army. At night, drunk soldiers are looking for girls, and the group, terrified, locks itself in the room. One of them, Jewish, recognized by his Yiddish accent, guards the girls all night, telling them that it's typhus quarantine room and it would be very dangerous to enter. New Brandenburg to Salonika. They're going to be moved back to Ravensburg, now is a displacement camp, and they're told that New Brandenburg is the station from which they will take trains home. The Greeks already assemble there, welcome them, and take good care of them. A lot of guys from Kokkinia, my grandmother says. They stay there for a month. At the Red Cross clinic, she's diagnosed and treated for frostbite. She never fully recovered from that. A Greek-American soldier enters their barracks and asks them to write something Greek for his mother's journal. Sylvia obliges, and she tells him that she also has family in Park Avenue, Brooklyn, if he could send word. The soldier promised to do so. This is the only photograph we have of my grandmother on the way back. It's a picture taken in some place in Germany. They go through Vienna, Czechoslovakia, Bucharest, Budapest, Serbia, Sofia, where the Jewish community intact invites them to a dinner at the synagogue. There, for the very first time, someone serves them, and they serve them rice-stuffed peppers, just like their mothers made them. They burst into tears, and the Bulgarians have no idea why. They're moved to the Pavlos Mela military camp outside Thessaloniki. With a group of friends, they beg the commander to let them leave and go to town. Here she is walking around the streets of Thessaloniki. That must be around 1946 or 1947. They reach the Jewish community offices in Vasilios Irakliou. Her family home is sold. She's housed in an old orphanage house. She's an orphan. Making the rounds in the new neighborhood, she cries her eyes out. No one is familiar. She used to do this a lot with my mother in tow. She also goes by the community every day to see if there are any letters waiting for her. And there are. Her father's sister, Clara Pardo, asked her to join them in Palestine. Her mother's sister, Buena Nachmias, asked her to come to America. Before making any decisions, she's waiting for news from Lieto. News about Lieto appear, and slowly she pieces a story. When escaping, he goes around the mountains of Sindos, hides there in villages, but on their way with a couple of friends to join the resistance, they're betrayed. He's put into one of the last trains to Majdanek. This is some pictures from Majdanek. I'm showing this specific slide because this entire structure went on flames in August of 2010. This is the chimney there, so we can imagine the flames coming out of it from what Sylvia saw. And this is the memorial of ashes. It's a mountain of ashes of a people gone. Lieto is one of the 300 that were executed just a month before liberation. There was an escape attempt that prompted Germans to execute many inmates. Elio is gone, and Sylvia is alone. She's, to just show a little bit of how alone she is, this is a quick list of Kaddish names that my mother put together a few years ago. These are the members of the family lost over there. Sylvia, shaken, buys a razor on the way to the orphanage and tries to kill herself. Her friends, Anna and Rachel, save her life and keep a very close eye on her since then. In this photograph, there might be some familiar faces to people in the room. Sam Saporta, Uncle Sam, is in the beginning. Right next to him is Moise Amir. We all knew him as Moishiko. Avram Rubisa, who lived in Israel, and Baruch Sevi, my grandfather. She meets Baruch in a party, in a Purim party, survivors organized, so it's very close to her birthday. She's introduced to him by her friend Jenny Yom Tov. Born in 1917, Baruch is a skilled welder and designer of metal bed frames. He was injured in the Italian front by a piece of shrapnel that went right through his right shoulder. Baruch survived Auschwitz III, Buna, with his younger brother Sammy, but they were separated in the camp when Sammy got in trouble and was taken for harder labor. As his camp was being liquidated, he hides under a pile of clothing and escapes execution. Sick with typhus after liberation, hears Greek spoken under his hospital window, asks about his brother, and finds Sammy. They're on their way back together, and they made it through. This photograph is on the 3rd floor of the museum in DC. You can see it, it's in their permanent collection. They meet each other and they like each other. They get married on June 16 of 1946 in Monastirioton Synagogue, where my mother got married and where I got married. They're trying to recreate what was lost. Their first floor neighbor, Madame Lutza, escaped by hiding in Athens, and she is the mother and educator for the entire group. Here they are in their first steps in life back into Salonika. The top corner photograph is a group of friends from there. Sylvia is seated next second, and she's pregnant. She gives birth on the building right next door, a handsome building. It's the Pinchas Clinic, later the Pinchas Kindergarten, when I spent 2 of my best years of my life. But they have children. This includes girls from the Block 10, the sterilization experiments. Jewish doctors that were forced to assist whenever they can, they sabotage the experiments. So they're miracle pregnancies and miracle children. Most of my grandmother's friends managed to do that. Here's the family. Formosa is born on September 23, 1947. Formosa Bitran Sevi was Baruch's mother, and my mother took her name. And even though a lot of people wanted boys as their firstborn, my grandfather is over the moon. He shows her off every chance he gets in the new stroller. Aunt Buena from New York actively helps the young couple with clothing and money. She also sent them a copy of that family portrait that I show you for them to have as their only photographic document from pre-war life. My favorite, Uncle Alberto, is in the bottom right photograph. He's in the stroller. He is born in August 1954, and he's taking the name of Avraham. That is Baruch's and Sylvia's father's name, so that was convenient. It was my father's name too. You can see him next door marrying my mother, and Sylvia is right next to her. Bienvenida and Avraham Mano are the custodians of the synagogue. So their living room on the 2nd floor in the Monastirioton Synagogue becomes the hangout for the girls of Block 20 and Block 10. They got together very often. They celebrated their Liberation Day by cooking and eating, now with their children in tow. During Passover, Sylvia would always invite her friends Sarika Nachmias and Mati Azaria to exchange pre-war stories, recipes, gossip, but mostly cry. When they met individually or as a group, conversations always ended up with the camps. They felt comfortable to remember with each other. And then it's the grandchildren. In the first photograph, With my grandfather is my brother Elias. He got Lieto's name, and my grandmother always have a very soft spot for him. I don't hold a grudge, I do too. Now he's married to Paloma Soel's granddaughter, Paula. The Pardo family that invited my grandmother is right next to it in the Jewish cemetery. In the bottom, my grandmother is holding her grandson, Barry Sevi, in his bris, and right next to her is Sylvia Sevi and Sivan Cohen. Sivan is a very creative version of Sylvia. That was Ninette's idea. When I told my grandmother we're naming our first child after her, she said, so what is the name? I said, it's Sivan. She said, is it Silvan? I said, no, it's Sivan. So she complained, she said, I didn't even get the L in there. Now, Sylvia, other than in her nightmares, returned to Auschwitz 3 times. In 1993, the photographs here. In 2004, and as part of a Vizzo delegation, somewhere in between. She gave 2 extensive interviews, one in Ladino for the US Holocaust Memorial Museum collection in June 96, and one in Greek for the Shoah Foundation in March 98. Here is Sylvia guiding the Greek delegation at the March of the Living in 2004. I traveled there from here. My brothers Elias and Erikos joined me there. You can see on the first photograph my mother, Erikos, and my grandmother there. Photograph next is showing the grandchildren of survivors, how their grandmothers walked, where they slept, where they ate, and where they worked. Photographs from that trip becomes the Sylvia exhibition. It actually premieres at the Greek Consulate in such an event in 2010. It moves to Athens as part of the 2011 International Photo Festival, and also ends up at the Benaki Museum in the photographs in the bottom, among many others. Here is in the museum in Athens. Nina Alkalai is lecturing there on the first photograph. The Hidden Children exhibition, again in the museum in Athens, curated by Dr. Aphrodite Kouria, was my first example of work and collaboration with that museum. It's a group show, and the title is Children That Were Hidden. I create a series of compositions that are to become pillows, because I'm thinking that children are most afraid at night, waiting for something terrible to come in. Who better than to sew these pillows than Sylvia? Here she is in action on her Singer machine. The Singer machine has a very special story. It belongs to my grandmother's youngest sister, Daisy. Daisy went to school to become a seamstress. My grandfather had 4 sisters. None of them survived. And then during the war, they asked from a neighbor to save it for them when they returned, because she would need that. Daisy would need that. It's a typical Singer machine. You recognize the Sphinx logo. This is one of the most early graphic influences on me. And then at the end is me in my Purim costume. In 1972, Sylvia would make all of our Purim costumes on that Singer machine. The wooden sword is made by my grandfather. And here is the exhibition at the museum as is combined with the permanent collection. Sylvia found peace in 2013. Many beloved were waiting for her. Finally, the portrait is full, but on the other side. If someone knows of a Nachmias family in Brooklyn with Thessaloniki roots, I would like to know them. Now, working with museums is a very special thing. In art school, you learn of the importance of research and attention to details. But when you run into institution, they make it clear that's the only way to go. This was apparent when I designed the logo for the Jewish Museum in Thessaloniki in 2001. It's based on a traditional Jewish motif that becomes a menorah that also reminds the iconic White Tower, and in the bottom we have the applications in the actual museum. About 20 years later, the logo for the Holocaust Museum of Greece, we developed that branding system in March 2018. The central logo is based on the Star of David turned by 30 degrees. You see some of the endless variations of it and some of the many applications that are yet to come. Finally, this exhibition is an ongoing exhibition at the Jewish Museum in Athens right now. It was a monumental effort. It's a great project. I encourage you to go see it. We combined ancient stones that document Jewish existence in Greece with a contemporary piece of artwork. To conclude, I will share some personal conclusions or things I tell myself every morning before facing my 1,200 students at school. One thing to know about young people is that they learn by example. They do as we do, not as we say. The future depends on choices, not circumstance. If we choose to remember, so will they. To discuss the Holocaust, one needs to be in the mood for hard truths, but truth is not a mood thing. If choosing to remember, remember actively. Passively equals forgetting. Find and create opportunities to contribute your expertise. We're all good at something. Focus on intergenerational projects, such as this one. They last longer. Make space for young people. Say no to ignorance. Learn more about the things that matter. Punish those who choose to lie, distort, and deny. Buy, contribute, and vote wisely. The Holocaust legacy will survive through its lessons, not its trauma. These lessons will survive through our kids. Only they can energize their peers. Being pessimistic about the new generation is not an option. Teach by example and trust them. They can only change the future. Before I leave you, I would like to thank my wife, Ninette Cohen, who's been the fire behind this speech. She believed in it much more than I did. And my family that had to experience me being a little weird in last month and a half as I was preparing this. Thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Victor, for that. Thank you for that deeply personal story and for these very wise conclusions that you just shared with us now. Esther and Sivan, who have stayed up here, will now read our final exchange of letters. These letters were written by Naama Kazes to her sons, the first to Maurice and the second to both Maurice and Berta. When these letters first came into the possession of the Jewish Museum of Greece back in 1992, it was impossible to discover much about the author, even her last name. But through incredible collaboration among Holocaust historians and an assist from technology via digitized records, eventually the author's name was revealed as Naama Kazes. Naama had tried to escape to Athens along with her son Maurice, but was stopped by authorities in Thessaloniki for not having the right permits. Berta, though, managed to join Maurice in Athens, but Naama never could. She was eventually deported to Auschwitz, where she was murdered. Esther and Sivan, if you please.
First letter, Friday, 29th of January, 1943. My dearest Maurice, you should have received my letter by now. I don't remember the date, and yesterday I received your card in which you tell me that you're doing well. I'm waiting to receive the long letter you promised me either tomorrow or on Sunday. Soon, I'll have finished ironing and cleaning the kitchen. Berto hasn't come to eat yet, and it's 2:30 p.m. It's payday. I'm taking the opportunity to write to you so that I can tell you what I'm doing. Ever since it snowed 5 days ago, everything has turned to ice, and the roads are like mirrors. It's freezing cold, and it's very windy too. The owner lights the stove every Friday evening, and we shiver like a bunch of wet cats. Luckily, the brazier helps a bit as it heats us in front and from behind. We try to keep as warm as possible in bed. You asked me what kind of blanket we have. Berto covers himself with a woolen blanket, and I cover myself with a baby blanket, the carpet from the chest, my sport coat, and Berto's raincoat. The thought of having to get up in the morning and moving from one place to another in the cold gives me goosebumps. I'm sitting next to the brazier at the moment and writing to you. The snow has covered half of the wall in the room where we sleep, and we breathe very well. I went to get Saturday's provisions this morning because we risked getting excommunicated for cooking on that day. They requisitioned the small room where we eat. I wasn't at home at the time, and Daisy was so scared she let them have their way without putting up a fight. We don't know who will come and cook there on Saturday. Maybe he'll eat garlic and cross himself. Jose and his wife nearly went crazy last night. They made me so angry that I went out despite the cold. When I got home, I saw them kneeling and with their heads bowed down in desperation and sadness. They look like Karaginos and Hajivat with Berta doing the miming. I nearly ripped my lip trying to keep myself from laughing. We'll see now how many people they'll bring. Our house is at the Guzios Kleanthos Italias crossroads. Gina isn't working at the workshop because it has been leased to a butcher. Regarding our health, we're well and we started to buy oil. Today, I made a pastelico of potatoes with oil, heavy for machines, from the grocers. Let me know what the result is for my permit. What are you eating? Did you look for the shoes? What condition are the shirts in? Last night, I dreamt of you, and you were in a good mood, making rosquitas. My son, when will we be able to make good things together again? Today, I felt a little more hopeful, but it didn't last long. Berto gave me 3,000 drachmas to buy a pair of stockings for the house. I try to keep the one I have in good condition for going out. Isn't Gantas coming? Send my best regards to him and his landlords too. I embrace you with all my heart, your mother who adores you and hopes to see you one day. Naama.
Thirteenth letter, Thursday, 8th of April, 1943. My dear Maurice and Berto, I received your letter, and it's clear to me that you don't know what we're going through. Only in stories or at the cinema can you see scenes similar to what we're going through this week. We have sat in bed, fully dressed, for 2 nights, waiting for someone to knock on the door, wake us up, and take us. Everyone is selling one's personal belongings in the streets and buying things to eat. We waste money as if it were water, we throw money out of the window. Personal belongings are distributed to whoever is interested. The crying, the groaning, the tragedies cannot be described. The day before yesterday, the pharmacist's daughter came to see me, and I asked her to tell her father that I wanted to pay him a long visit and then sleep. He refused. His daughter came over again today and brought me a small jar of marmalade along with some brioche. She apologized for his refusal. Bazetti's wife comes by 3 times a day to ask Gina and me for some personal belongings. We gave her some, but nothing of mine. I gave her the suitcase with my and Berto's belongings. I took them from Vanguelo's other neighbor because I thought they would be safer at Bazetti's place. The streets are packed with people trying to catch and steal people's belongings like a bunch of hyenas circling a dead horse. Yuseh sold 3/4, and the only thing Daisy does is cry all day, seeing merchants enter her home. A true flea market. It's like living your worst nightmare, day and night, in indescribable anguish. Everyone has a cart ready outside one's door. Ida bought one for $120,000 to transport her belongings and the baby. We're wondering what to do with Andrea, who will succumb in the middle of the journey to the station. Gina gave all of her hats and gloves to Sula, the pharmacist. We were notified last night that we would be leaving this morning. Now, we don't know what day of the week we'll leave. If we don't leave tomorrow, we have until the 15th to leave. I don't sleep at night, and my only thoughts are of you, that this terrible wind doesn't blow in your direction as well. May God bless you, my dear children, as my thoughts will become even more muddled once I no longer know where you are. Pay an extended visit to Guzios and give him my regards. He's done so much for you and will continue to do so. We tried to be together with Gina, but we don't know how they will block us. In any case, we think we'll be together or with Ida, who is in the same block as us. My bag was ready, but it wasn't solid enough, and I couldn't lift it. Gina helped me pack another bag today. She tries to make me think positively, but I can't get over not knowing when I'll see you again. Gina helped me. God has become deaf to my prayers, but I still pray to him. The weather here helps with the melancholia. If the weather changes where you are, as it is spring, beware of the cold because the changes in temperature are very unhealthy. Be well and always stay together. Try to find me with Gina because the thought of you not knowing where we are is driving me crazy. Gina is sometimes in a better mood, and she lifts my spirits a little. May God help us and reunite us all in good health. I embrace you with all my heart and soul, my dearest children. May the good Lord have mercy on the innocent who aspire only to simple family pleasures. May God watch over you and keep you from all evil. Your mother only has one thought on her mind, to see her children well. Gina will write to you. Your mother, Neama.
And for our final component of tonight's event, I would like to invite Irini, Nectarios Antoniou, and Michael Brown up on stage. The musical program we are about to hear is comprised of Greek and Ladino traditional songs, as well as some more recent pieces that speak to the current moment. If you please.
Adonai, Adonai, αφήνεις την ψυχή μου απ' τον κόσμο να χαθεί. El Khairahman, El Khairahman, El Khairahman, Melech Tsarumatzak metzauni, Tsarumatzak metzauni, oyamai mineurai. Θεέ μου στο δικό σου χέρι, Θεέ μου στο δικό σου χέρι, είναι τα τρία τα κλειδιά. El Khairahman, El Khairahman, El Khairahman, Melech Mena.
Γιατί πως μπορώ να
Hey.
Y te búscate otro amor. Arba otras puertas, espera otro ardor, que para mí sos muerta. Espera otro ardor, que para mí sos muerta.
Thank you so much. Michael Brown, Nectarios Antoniou, and Erin, thank you.
We'd like to thank the Hebrew Union College for hosting us in this space and all of our incredible sponsors, including the Stavros Niarchos Foundation for supporting tonight's musical performance, and Alma Bank for offering the refreshments we'll find out in the hall. And a special thank you to Evelyn Canelea, Apostolos Mavromatis, and Esmeralda Moscow, who worked tirelessly behind the scenes to help pull all this together. On behalf of all the organizers, it means a lot to us that you were able to join us for this evening's program. Thank you all for being here. Good night.